Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2020 show. We are still here at the Grant King Race Shops, thanks to Bill and Stephanie Throckmorton allowing us in here. I got to tell you, the place will be opening shortly when things get a little more wide open, and you will want to come in here. They got a bunch of new additions to the collection of cars here, and you'll absolutely want to see them. But when you want to come here, you best call ahead of time because they have several other businesses to keep them occupied. So give them a call, tell them you'd like to come. Yeah, bring a group, 8, 10 people, that's fine. They'd love to have you. The number to call for, let them know you're coming is 317-820-3595. I tell you, when things open up, you got to come down here. The show here is spectacular. Today's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA, and McGilvery's Pub and in Speedway, Indiana. And you want to remember 4th of July weekend when they're running here at the Speedway with no audience. NBC Network will be televising all 3 races. McGilvery's will be open. Get together with race fans and come on out and watch them. Founded in 1993 to spearhead Honda's entry into IndyCar racing, Honda Performance and Development has overseen successful racing efforts at all levels of the sport, from karting and quarter midgets to IndyCar and prototype sports cars. HPD offers race engines and competition products for professional, amateur, and entry-level racers. For more information about HPD and the company's racing product lines, just visit hpd.honda.com. And once again, I need to thank the Speedway Community TV people for making sure we get streamed and the program edited and put together. If you have computer problems, I certainly do. And we have a new computer guy. It's A+ Affordable Computer Doctor. He is a doctor of the old time. He makes house calls. Give him a call. Tell him your problem. If you need be, you can stop by. The number is 317-328-0766. And should you need to have your most favorite doctor's appointment, the dental appointment. That's always the best. Everybody loves that. But go to the best place in the state. It's the Indy Dental Group. Indy 500 veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have the #1 rated practice in Indiana. Give them a call, make an appointment. The number is 317-846-6125. And you want to figure out why these guys and gals love driving Indy cars? Why don't you take a ride in the Indy Racing Experience 2-seater? Just go to IndyRacingExperience.com, find a date that can work for you. And in the promo box, put DK1, you get a 50% discount. Or you can call Shonda at the office. Number is 317-243-7171. Is it time to renew your insurance for your home, your car, or your commercial property? Do what most of us have done. Call Mike Pardee at BP Insurance. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. Call them, tell them what you need. They'll give you a quote, and you'll find you get better coverage for less money. 317-248-0070. Are you a vintage car or a Trans Am fan? Well, SVRA covers them both. You need to subscribe to the Speed Tour magazine, top flight magazine, great pictures, great stories. And as I've said many times, a lot of the cars you knew as a kid and some of the drivers you knew, they're back on the track. So go to svra.com and subscribe to the Speed Tour magazine. And while you're there, click onto their schedule and see what their current schedule is. You want to go to an event if it's anywhere in your area. That's svra.com. Subscribe to Speed Tour and check the schedule. Do you have a vintage car or would you like one? Well, the place to come is the Grant King Shops. They can restore the vehicle for you, do the body work and all that. And if you're looking to buy one, they can help you there too. Give them a call. Number is 317-820-3595. My first guest is a gentleman that I've known for, 25, 30 years. I used to see him when he was winning in Trans Am, jumping up and down on the hood of his car. I was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway when he took his first test ride out there. He got out of the car when he took his first laps and working up to speed. He got out of the car and said, "Boy, he's going to go fast." I said, "Really? What gave you that impression?" He managed to get into the IndyCar Series. He's done very well. And to the sporting world and motorsports in particular, he's known as Willy T. Please welcome my guest, Mr. Willy T. Ribbs. How you doing?
Hello, DK. Hello, DK. You know, I did a show with CNN and Don Lemon, and I called him DL. So everybody's got an acronym now.
Oh, good.
DK.
Something else you're known for. What got you into motorsports to begin with? How did you get there?
Well, my dad raced when I was a kid. Actually, he was racing motorcycles before I was born, dirt track. And then after when I was born and young kid, he started racing cars. So that was my introduction. And I used to go to the races with him, you know, by the time I was starting at 3 years old, I was going to the races. So I knew by 9 years old what my career path was going to be.
How did you get, how did you start? What were your first vehicles that you drove? Certainly didn't start out in Trans Am.
No. Once I got out of high school, I worked in the family business for about, about a year and a half. And then I went to England and started my career in England in Formula Fords. And there was a reason behind that. And the reason was I knew, you know, because I was around the sport and studied it, I knew that Emerson Fittipaldi left Brazil and went to England, went and raced in Formula Fords and did well, and then went into Formula One and, you know, became a world champion and also, of course, went in Indy twice. So that was my playbook. That was the playbook I wanted to follow. Went to England, started my career, did real well, won my first championship in Formula Fords over there, and then came back to the United States.
When you were in Europe and in England in particular, you ran into a guy who also was from Ireland, and he came here and was successful. I'm talking about, of course, Derek Daly. You and Derek have been friends for a long time.
Oh, Derek and I have been friends for over 40 years. And, you know, the great thing about that is when I got to England, Derek was one of the first drivers I met. He became like a mentor. He taught me a lot and he just showed me the ropes there. And we are close friends to this day. As a matter of fact, he was at my wedding in Las Vegas in 2018. So he's been fabulous. He's a super guy, super human being, and he's like a brother to me.
Well, you know, as we listen now, and something has been going on for years, although I have to say, I've never had a problem. I don't care if you're pink. It doesn't matter to me. You treat everybody right, that's fine. Did you have a struggle getting into racing? Did you have problems when you went to Europe? They say, well, wait a minute, do we want him here? Did you have any kind of trouble?
Oh, it's always been difficult for me. The toughest part, despite winning and everything that I got into that was competitive, that was on a level playing field, I won. Whether it was in Trans Am, whether it was in Formula Fords, whether it was in IMSA, I won races. So the final hurdle was IndyCar, and that was, you know, I got no corporate support to be successful. I mean, I didn't get, you know, Roger Penske didn't hire me, or Ganassi, or any of the top teams. No one hired me, so I struggled in the mid-pack with 1/3 or less the budget than the top teams had. And you're not going to win. You're not going to go out there and beat Al Jr. You're not going to beat Mario or Michael or any of the top players in IndyCar. You're not going to beat them. Not when you're light. And Mario Andretti has a great saying. And he says that if the person you're competing against has 1,000 components and you got 999, you're at a deficit. So that's how competitive the sport is. That's what it takes to be successful. That was the hardest part of my career. I didn't, you know, now in NASCAR, I ran into opposition based on race down there. I did, and although it didn't bother me at all. I mean, that didn't, that was energy for me. I love to fight. I just whether we're on the racetrack or we get out of the car, I love fighting. So I think they got the message that I wasn't going to turn another cheek, and then they left me alone.
I remember when I started following NASCAR, you could have taken a shotgun and shot in the grandstands and not hit anybody. There was nobody there. This was in the late 60s and early mid 70s. There wasn't that many people. But there was a driver, and you may have met him or know of him, and I think they made a documentary on him, Wendell Scott. Did you know him? Did you ever meet him?
I never have met Wendell Scott. He was in Virginia, and by the time I started racing, he had retired, and I never saw him at a race. I met his wife, of course, and his daughter, but I've never met. I would have liked to have met him.
Well, when I was following the series, and I was there most every weekend. If there was an IndyCar race, I was in NASCAR. I had sponsorship, and the guy that was the head of RJ Reynolds marketing, I just forgot his name, Ralph Seagraves, made sure I got to all the races because I was the first Yankee down there. And I always see Wendell outside the garage. He was under with his truck with no canopy or anything. And one day it bothered me. So I went up to one of the officials at NASCAR. I said, "Why is Wendell always outside?" He said, "He doesn't have to be. You get a garage as you get here. He's always last," and he was. He had a crew of two sons, I believe, that worked with him, and he had a business and didn't get there. He was the last one there. But he was always a good guy. Always, I talked to him, he was a good guy, and he didn't complain about anything. He says, "Well, I'm late. That's the price I have to pay." So, the things going on, I think, are ridiculous. I've noticed from you, I've never seen you don't have a smile. Somebody wants to say hello, shake your hand. You always said yes. You didn't care who it was or where it was or when it was. Well, except you're getting in the car. But I marveled at the fact that nothing seemed to bother you except wanting to win the race, period. That's what you were there for.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I never played the victim role, but I will play the ass-kicking role if you say the wrong thing. That Willy T. Ribs is known for that. And I don't, I'm going to treat every individual, everyone, no matter who it is, or she, or he, the way they treat me. That's how it works with me, and it will remain that way.
Well, it amazes me with some of the things being said. I've never seen anybody hesitate to come up. Latest being when you come here for the SVRA event, the Pro-Am thing. People come up, want your autograph, want a picture with you, a sign. You don't reach anybody, and nobody hesitates to go talk to you.
Well, I got to tell you, Don, Indianapolis is like my second home. When I come to Indy, from the time I land, it is a great experience. And I would say everyone that I've met in Indy, just people I don't even know, just shake hands, say hi. It's a great welcome. It's like homecoming every time I land into Indy, no matter where I go. It doesn't have to be the racetrack. I could be walking around Monument Circle. It's just hi, Willy T, hi, and just very warm. That's what it's been.
Well, and deserving, as I said, I've observed you for 25, 30 years, and I've never, if you were doing the two-step with somebody in the parking lot after the race, I never saw that. But if I saw somebody make a fist, I'd always go the other way. So that somehow I got whacked some way or other. So I never saw you in a confrontation. And as far as I could tell, on the racetrack, you were respected for your ability and raced accordingly.
Well, yeah, at that level, you're with the best guys in the business. Nigel Mansell and I started together in England. Probably of all the drivers on the planet, now Nigel Mansell and I probably have known each other on the track, because I started racing. Nigel and I's first race together was 1977. I hadn't raced anybody here in the United States because I started over there. It was, and to this day, Nigel and I are good friends, and it's all about respect. It's respect, and that's a good thing. Not everybody in racing I'm have a love affair with. We're not sweet kissing cousins. Some of those guys. Jackie Stewart, I hate him. Okay, there's and I didn't race against Jackie, but he's just been such a divisive human being, especially with his attacks on Lewis Hamilton. Scott Goodyear, we weren't sweet kissing cousins, nor Danny Sullivan, and I got a laundry list. So there's been great people in the sport for me. Dan Gurney, especially Dan Gurney, Uncle Bobby. Him and I talk at least once a week. At least. I love him to death. Al Jr., well, everyone knows Al Jr. and I's relationship. Al knows if we walk into a bar room and anyone said anything wrong to him, well, it'd be like saying it wrong to me. So I've got great relations, and that's the positive side.
Well, I have to say, as I think I mentioned in introducing you, anytime you've been in town and I've invited you, you've always made arrangements to be there. Whether you had a dinner engagement, you held it off, or whatever it was, but you'd always say, I'll be there, and you'd be there. And the fans, I think, appreciate that. As you walk out the door, if you're thirsty, you better get something before you start, because you get approached and handshake, and pictures and autographs. You have treated the fans well, and they have returned it, I think. I think they respect what you do, who you are, and how you do it.
Well, I'm always going to come back to you, Don. You're like, you ever, when you were younger, you had your first dates? You always remember your first dates. And if when your first date, once, hi, let's get together for lunch. You got to do it. So you're like one of my first dates. I never say no.
That's true. That's true. Currently, what are your, now you made a statement I read somewhere recently that said that IndyCar in particular, but sports, motorsports in general, have to have diversity. Now, I've never, ever heard anybody with any of the series that I'm aware of say, we don't want him because. I mean, when IRL started, George Mack was here for a couple of years. I worked for Dick Simon, and they had a black engineer who was a super guy and very smart. And nobody ever walked away or said, what's he here for? Nobody said anything. How do you think black drivers, if they have an interest, and I'm not so sure that they, this is where they want to head, but how do you solve it? You don't go out to the kids and say, hey, I'm going to put you in the car, you're going to go race.
No, Don, there's some drivers I've been asked nearly every day about your question. One, Formula One has Lewis Hamilton, yes. 6-time world champion. Bernie Ecclestone saw the value of Lewis Hamilton in Formula One. It has broadened the base tenfold. So, and of course, NASCAR's got Bubba Wallace now, and and they're fighting fires as we speak, right? So, IndyCar has got to have another Willy T. Ribbs, and there's a couple of drivers. There's a driver from Zimbabwe. He's half black and half English, by the name of Axel Jeffries. As a matter of fact, he ran 4 races in Indy Lights, 2 from Brian Herta. He just didn't have any money. Axel Jeffries could step right into IndyCar with a proper test program. If I was Roger Penske, I'd get him over here right now. And he's been winning over in Europe. He's currently active. So If I was RP, I'd get Axel Jeffries and put him with Tim Cindric and get him, just like they had the Australian kid over here, McLaughlin. Get him running, get him testing, get him into the series, because IndyCar's got to have that.
Well, it certainly wouldn't hurt him any, but you know, when you look at other sports, football and basketball, number one, and soccer to some degree, they tend to go in that direction rather than racing. I guess it's easier to think if I fall down on a basketball court, I might get an owie on my butt or my shoulder or something. If you have an accident in an IndyCar, you have a problem, or in a race car for that matter.
Well, I don't think it's got anything to do with the risk, the danger side of it. It's all got to do with economics. Okay, anybody, you know, Don, could jump off that chair and go get a basketball or and start dribbling and start tossing baskets into the hoop. You cannot buy a race car. Maybe you can, maybe you have that kind of money, but you're not going to jump in a race car and go out and groom yourself.
That's true, and I got better sense because I got into it. I play hell getting back out of it. That'd be my problem today. But I fell in love with the sport in 1962 or 63, and I'm still here. I'm still in Indianapolis. There's something about it and about the people that are, of course, involved. And the thing that's of interest is when Sam Schmidt was in the lights business, he came up with drivers going, where in the world did he find them? Well, they found them somehow. Ricardo Juncos has done the same thing, found drivers. It would seem to me if somebody's looking for a good driver, this kid is somebody worth looking at. And I'm not so sure if somebody has it. Maybe
well, there's some young kids out there now that are in their teens and early 20s. David Dalton Jr., for example, Amari Odom, and a couple of other young kids. They're getting into Formula 4. They'll be in Formula 4 this year. And as a matter of fact, they'll be at Mid-Ohio this weekend. You got to start the grooming process. And Ron Dennis has the playbook. Ron Dennis took Lewis Hamilton from the time he was 12 years old in go-karts and groomed him right into Formula One, right into his team in McLaren, and made him a world champion. Now he's 6-time world champion. That's the investment that's got to be made. And I would challenge every automobile manufacturer, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, they all must ante up. Because you're selling cars to everyone, boys. You're not just selling cars to one particular group of people. You're selling to everybody. You ante up and you create this program to groom these drivers, groom these young guys. I would demand that. And not any one particular, so they can soak themselves down, you know, in glory. All of them. Put up the money, make this program, and it's not rocket science, Don. Piece of cake. Fund it, and it'll happen.
Well, I think, you know, Roger has stepped up when they canceled the Indy Lights this year because several of the drivers couldn't get here, so they were down to about 6 cars, and he said, no, we'll go back next year. But he's also said, as I'm sure you're aware, he wants all IndyCar teams to be associated with or have a lights team. And I think that could be what will open the doors.
Sure. But you know, having a team takes funding. That's where I say the automobile manufacturers, they must create this program and fund it. They're the ones that gain the most. They gain the most because no one's riding horses. Everyone drives a car. That's their responsibility. And I'm going to push that. I am going to push them. And if they're not doing it, why?
Well, I think some of the teams could certainly afford to have it. I mean, to add a lights car to a team with 4 or 5 cars can't be that costly particularly. or to associate with one, so that they get something for it, an extra test day or something. I forget what it is, but I think that should open the door to some of these guys and say, hey, let's get a team that'll help us. It's going to up the winner circle money for doing it. So
You bet. You bet. And even before Indy Lights, I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about Formula 3, Formula 4, right into the ladder system. Take them right up the ladder, and if they're good, then they go into the big leagues. And the big leagues, of course, is IndyCar.
Got to ask you, I've known you a long time, and all of a sudden, here they do a documentary on Willy T called Uppity. My first question is, why Uppity? Where did that?
Well, that was what I was called when I was down there in NASCAR. They thought I don't think they saw Wendell Scott. They dealt with Wendell Scott. Wendell was a nice guy, and he took a lot. He took a lot of abuse that it shouldn't have happened. Willy T didn't take any abuse. Okay. And they knew that they were playing with a rattlesnake, and this rattlesnake doesn't get his head cut off. Okay, so they were playing with someone that did not turn the other cheek, and consequently, I ended up with the tag. He's uppity, but they added another word to the end of that. But you and I can't say that now.
How was it difficult to do that film? Because I said to a number of people, if Willy could get a piece of a movie where he didn't have to do much but sit in a chair and talk, he'd be a star. How difficult was it for you to go back and talk about things that happened from when you got started in racing all the way to where you are today? Was that a tough talk?
No, it really wasn't. To be able to recall everything, Don, and bring it back, and it all starts to come back because you'll recall something and you'll write it down, and then you'll continue to remember more and more. And probably the hardest part about doing it wasn't the negativity which I received, or some of the setbacks. It was talking about Jim Truman. That was the hardest part, was reflecting on Jim Truman, and that he really he didn't get to see me qualify for Indy. I mean, he got me when I came back from England. I didn't have a deal, and he supported me until I got into Trans Am, and then he continued. I continued a personal services deal with him, and right up until he passed away. That was the hardest part. I mean, hopefully he was watching from upstairs, but that him not being able to see that, and he got a lot of criticism for supporting me. And a lot of people did. Dan Gurney got criticism from some of his buddies. What are you putting this, well, you know what they said, in a car? And, but, they blew those guys off, like, go sit down and shut up.
It was an interesting documentary that from what I remember of seeing things and being, places that you talked about, was good. But, a lot of people saw that film. A lot of people. That really went well.
It's gone viral. We're in 17 countries, Don, and I've done interviews about it worldwide. I just did an interview with Canada this morning. I did, CNN just a couple of days ago, then CNN International before that. As a matter of fact, they're going to open up the Formula One race in Austria with a piece on uppity and Willy T ribs. So, you know, it's the response I've gotten, not just from people who love racing or racing fans. John Q. Public is where I'm getting the most messages from. And it's all of it has been positive, not one negative. And it just, you know, the way they saw it, young kids, millennials, said to me, I have no reason to fail. That's what's coming from millennials. I have no reason to fail.
And I think it also bodes well for you as a leader. I think somebody look up to and say, you know, do I have to do this? I can do what Willy did. I put my mind to it and put effort and learn. I can do it. That's the secret. I think you are, in my mind, having known you as long as I have, you are the ideal guy for kids to look up to. And I hope that you're brought into, you know, schools, high schools and stuff, and talk to these kids and say, hey, there's only one way to get to the top is work.
Exactly. You cannot look for a reason and not to succeed. You cannot. My Henry Ribs, he would have put his foot up my butt and twisted it if I would have came to him and said, well, I just don't think I can do it, Grandpa. He wouldn't have not tolerated that. And it was tough. I mean, Bobby Unser has said to me more than once, he said, not many men could have done what you did. Talent aside, they couldn't have done and overcome the obstacles that you faced when you were not behind the wheel of the race car, everywhere else. He understood, and he told me some of the stories that he heard about me. He told me, and I was glad to hear it, and I love him for that. He just said that you know, you overcame something that most wouldn't have dealt with.
And my knowledge, again, as long as I've known you, you've dealt with most things that I'm aware of with a smile. And that defeats everybody. They start this nonsense, you just smile at them, they go, oh, I guess that didn't work. And your attitude about, you know, I'm here, I can win, let's go race. Stop the nonsense, let's go.
And that's what it was about, you know, and I think when we get behind the wheel, we have an objective. The objective is to go and win the race at all possibility. I think the drivers that I had issues with, they had issues not with me being a competitor as much as the competitor I was. They felt, and I know, and I've been told, well, this guy's not supposed to beat us. He's black. Those are the guys that I had. They were racing, not Willy T. Ribs, the race driver, Willy T. Ribs, the black person. And consequently, you know, that stuck in their head, and I was using it on them.
That's great. Another thing, when you started your IndyCar career, you got help from a guy that would probably never have, I was surprised. Bill Cosby stepped up to help you, and I believe it was through him you got Service Merchandise as a sponsor.
Don, that was a big surprise. Before Bill had issues, and I mean, I didn't know, I wasn't involved with his private life, but I will never speak bad about Mr. Cosby, because if it wasn't for him, I don't agree with what transpired personally in his life, but if it wasn't for Bill Cosby, I would have never been in Indy 500. I had no idea he knew who in the hell Willy T. Ribs was until I got the phone call. And he called and he says, tell me about racing. Why do you do it? You don't have a death wish, do you? And so I said, no, sir. I said, I do it. I was born into it, and it's been my goal to be a champion. Okay. Well, I don't like racing, but I like you. And that's how it happened. He was not interested in racing. All he was interested in was seeing that I achieved my goal. And so I met him 2 days later in Las Vegas. I flew down to Vegas to see him. We shook hands, and he says he was going to do it.
And he did.
And he did.
And I see that he is getting trial done or something. He's getting an opportunity to represent his case or whatever it is. I'm not sure. So he's still in the news a little bit, and it's a shame that that happened because he was a good guy. And of course, to have stepped up and helped you, you couldn't say anything bad about it. You did something that you wanted to get somewhere you wanted to go.
Don, he was, I think 2 men that I've dealt with, well, 3, Newman was another one, that when they said they were going to do something, it was done. Everything Bill Cosby said he was going to do with me, didn't need a contract, didn't need a lawyer. He did it, and he did it right away. Paul Newman was the same way. Paul, when he said he was going to do something, boom, he didn't drag his feet. And they were at Truman, Jim Truman, same way. I'm going to do it. Call me tomorrow. And boom, it was done. You can't ever forget that. That was such, and that's how my grandfather was. That's how he raised us. Don't let your bulldog mouth overload your puppy dog ass.
You said you worked a little over a year in the family business. What was the family business?
Well, my grandfather founded Henry Ribbs Plumbing Company in 1927. And he got through the Depression, and the war started not long after, and my uncle and my dad went off to the war, World War II, and when it was over, the building boom in California exploded. Silicon Valley was nothing but apricot orchards and cherry orchards, and then the building exploded with Hewlett and Packard and all the technology companies, and not just that, but you needed housing as well. So my grandfather's business really took off. He ended up buying real estate. He ended up building his own apartment complexes and that he owned, and he retired when he was 50 and left the business to my dad and uncle. And then he bought a 300-acre ranch in Northern California. And I ended up, growing up I lived there for 4 years on the ranch with him, starting at age 13.
Well, I think you made a good choice. You probably would be a good plumber. And I'd hire you if I had a problem. I think
I forgot everything.
I would have hired you. Today, I don't think so. But
you know what they say in plumbing? Never chew on your fingernails.
I was an electrician. When I went into the electrical business, I said, I asked the plumber one day, we're having lunch. I said, why'd you go to plumbing? Why'd you go to electrical? So, plumbing is easy. 2 things you got to know. Water runs downhill, you get paid every Friday.
You bet. You bet.
I guess that translates. I have to say that in my opinion, you epitomize what race drivers are and should be. You've never let anything bother you, and you've had to put up with stuff that other guys have never even thought about. And nobody's really talked too much about it until now. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think as far as life matters, I think all lives matter, and I think you agree with all lives matter. And I think you're the ideal guy that should be leading the charge to help these kids that are capable of moving up. I think you have the connection, and somebody would listen and say, here's somebody, you're looking for somebody, here they are. And get them in. If they're qualified to run, it doesn't matter if you're pink, blue, green. No, it doesn't matter.
No, well, and Ron Dennis proved that.
Yeah.
Ron Dennis, I mean, when you look at how phenomenal a race driver Lewis Hamilton is, and he's on another planet. And so, you know, or let's use golf as an example, Tiger Woods. It don't matter. Either you got it or you don't. And I think the sport is missing. They're missing an audience. They're missing a fan base that they would have automatically if PGA never had the ratings that they have until they got Tiger Woods. Never, not even close. And that's not shooting down Arnold Palmer or Jack Nicholson or Jack Nicklaus. That's not disparaging them at all. Add this guy, and you just added money to your bottom line, and not just in TV numbers, but the advertisers, they want in. They want in. The same thing will happen in IndyCar.
I think you're right. I think I see you as a leader in that field, helping coordinate, getting teams and drivers together so they can make their march up if that's what they're interested in doing. And I think you're the ideal guy to do that. If you've been there, done that, you understand it, you understand what it takes to succeed.
Well, I mean, example, and I was a part of the show, so I'm going to take credit for it. 1993, Mark Dill told me that, and he was there. 1993 was the biggest year in Indy 500 history in terms of TV numbers. TV numbers, biggest year ever to this day. And, you know, the gate is always big. I mean, they had 400,000 people. But in terms of TV numbers, it was the biggest audience in history. And, of course, Nigel was in it, and Mario, and I don't know if AJ was there. But, you know, it was huge. And I know I had a huge African-American audience following me in 1993. That's it. Just look at the printout sheet. That's all they got to do.
So hopefully there's some Americans in the people you're talking about, because when they come, they bring fans with them, no doubt. I mean, the foreign drivers that are here now, when I want to invite them, they say, we don't even know anything about them. I said, that's why I get them on the program, so you see who they are and what they are, and how they are, all that, how they got here.
Yep.
I hope you will take a leadership role in making this happen, and I'm sure you will. By the way, there's another champion with the name T. Ribs. His name is Theo. And, you know, that young man is, I think, on occasion, has been a world champion. And he's a shooter.
You know, I got to tell you, Don, I'm really proud. You know, Theo Ribs, you know, he started shooting a shotgun when he was 9 years old, and he was doing it because I was doing it. That was my hobby. All the drivers, they went out and golfed and played golf. That just didn't make enough noise for me. I mean, if I like three things and they all make noise, one of them's a race car, the other one's a shotgun, and the other one, well, I'll let her tell you, you know. But you know, I got to hear some noise. So, you know, he went out with me, and then he started taking it serious, and he shot his first competition when he was, I think, 13, and the rest is history. He's one of the best shooters in the world. You know, I thought I was going to quit traveling when I retired from racing. I ended up having to travel with him to Dubai and to England and to Italy and to all over the world because he couldn't rent a car. He was too young, but he was junior national champion. And then he went on and became national champion. And this year, like I said, he opened the season this year with 2 wins, one in Florida and in Georgia in February. And then the virus shut everything down. So he's getting back. I practice with him. I go out and train with him and practice. And his first event startup will be next month.
Well, he's always been a good guy. Always, he's been on the program, I think, once or twice when he came with you. I said, I want to talk to a current champion, not this old stuff.
Well, he wants to take you shooting, Don.
That's what I'm afraid of.
He's going to take you down to Indianapolis Gun Club and put a shotgun in your shoulder. And I'm going to tell you what, don't tell anybody, because then when these guys want to take you out bird hunting, don't say that you've been training with Theo. Bet them money. Tell them, you know, and just bet them, and you'll have their birds and their money.
All right. Well, we wish him well. Give him my best. And I've invited him many times. If he comes to Indianapolis, let me know if you're here on a Tuesday. I'd love to talk to you.
You bet. He loves you, man.
He's a good guy. He's done well. You should be proud. Well, I want to thank you and your wife for taking the time to talk to me today. I always enjoy chatting with you. There's always a cackle or two in there. And if we weren't going to put this to the public, it would be someone would be even funnier. But I've got to be tidy here. So,
well, the best is yet to come. We'll do the night show later. Yeah, the night show, it goes from G to double R.
Boy, that sounds like fun. All right, Willie. Hey, by the way, you know, your name was William Theodore. How the heck did Willy T get?
Well, it started in England. I went over as William. On my entry forms, it was William T. Ribs. And so the Anthony Marsh was a commentator. And he saw it, and he was commentating a race I was doing, and he said, well, William's a little bit too long. We'll just call him Willy T. And that's how it started.
And it's gone around the world.
Yep.
U.S.A. Who are you going to talk to next week? Willy T. Oh, great. Can't wait. I appreciate your time. Always a pleasure talking to you. And my head is off to you and your career, and the way you held yourself and represented yourself, I think, is outstanding.
The best is yet to come, Don.
So look forward to it. And when you're in town, you're always invited to Autosport when we get back to doing live broadcasts.
Well, I'll be back in with you.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Guest has been Willy T. Ribs. If you haven't ever heard of Willy T., you listen to this, or if you get a chance and haven't seen Uppity, go see it. It's really worth seeing. He's a great guy. It's a great story. And he's just a one of a kind. So until next time, we have some guests lined up that we'll be talking to. So come back and watch us. Until then, Don Kay saying thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. See you next.